Okay, I'm going to drop a nugget of wisdom for you guys today in this video. How to get your manager, your boss, to completely trust you, and how to build an amazing relationship in the beginning of your overemployed journey with all of your jobs. So this is very important because if you don't set the stage early on in your career with that company, things can go very sideways very quickly, and you can still succeed without doing this, but it'll make everything a million times harder. Like the friction will be insane. You don't need to have a shitty experience at your job. So if you start a new job, and this applies to even if you're just working a single job, remote job or whatever, but especially in overemployed, because when you're overemployed, things come up, right? Meeting conflicts, things like that. So you need to be able to be flexible and adaptable, and sometimes inevitably you will need to maybe step away from your computer for a little bit, or be like, hey, I need to miss this meeting, I got to do this thing, whatever, right? And when those times come, the better trust you have with your team and your managers and your company, the more forgiving they will be to those type of situations, right? And you'll be able to have that trust in them, they'll have that trust in you, so that whenever that happens, they know it's not a big deal. So this is what you need to do. In the first, ideally, I would say 6 months. In the first 6 months of your tenure at your new company, you need to put in 100 to 110% effort, okay? And I know it'll be hard, and it kind of contradicts with some overemployed advice you might hear, even from this channel, about not always putting in your best foot forward. But you need to be a top performer, at least in the first couple months, right? 2 to 3 months, I would say, is minimum if you want to make the company and your manager and your team are very trustworthy with you. But ideally it would even be 6 months, right? But at least a couple months, 2 to 3 months. So you need to overperform to the point where they have no doubts in their head or subconscious thoughts like, oh, maybe this guy's not doing that much work, or maybe he's a little lazy, whatever. You need to get a task and finish it right away. Tell your manager you finish it, message him, email him, whatever, however you guys communicate on your team. Be like, hey, I'm done. What's the next task, right? Like, show that initiative. Show that you want more work. Show that you're striving to finish things for the team. And not only that, point things out. If you get a task and you generally have, you have to look for these, right? Sometimes you can get in a position of stagnation where you just get a task and you just do it. You do what's listed. But if you can get to the point where you see something that could be improved, then you point that out to your manager, they'll notice that even more. They'll be very happy to do that. And then they'll see that you genuinely care about putting your best foot forward. And the more you do this, you get a task, you complete it. You get another one, you complete it. You tell your manager, I'm done. What's next? And it'll be like, how about this feature? Should we implement this for the future? That'll really make you look like a top performer. And then after 2 to 3 months of doing that, and again, ideally 6 months even, but after the first few months of you doing that, even if your performance drops, they won't notice. They won't care because they'll have that trust in you. And obviously you still do your work. Don't let your performance drop to a bare minimum where you're not barely getting anything done. But even if your performance drops drastically, they won't really notice, right? They have a whole team to manage. And at that point you can kind of coast. And again, this applies to any job, if you're overemployed or not. The first few months set the stage for who you are as a person. And then once they build that trust with you, it's basically coasting from there. Still do your work, still do good work, but you don't need to be a top performer at that point anymore, because they know in their head they've built that image of you. And this is kind of like a psychology thing. This is not really specifically just for jobs, it's just how people really act in general. In the beginning, no one knows you. You build a first impression that could take a month or two, but once you build that impression of you, people solidify that image of you, that idea of you in their head. Think about any of your friends or whatever. This is kind of how people don't really change the way they think about people, unless you generally are those type of people that are very attentive and hyper aware, which is actually a really good thing. But in general, most people aren't. So if people know a friend that they've been friends with for years, even if that friend starts being a shitty friend or they change up at all, they won't really care. They'll still think of it and they'll justify it, whatever action, because, oh, that's just who they are, whatever. I know they're still a good person overall. So they'll rationalize a lot of things that you slip up on just because they've known you for a while and that you've set that stage early on, right? So if you can set that stage, that you're a top performer, that you're a good employee, that you're trustworthy, in the future, when you do slip up occasionally, when you have to skip a meeting or whatever, they'll let that slide. 9 times out of 10. And that's really how you can make your journey much smoother and not have to deal with people worrying about where you are or getting on your ass about finishing things. So if you guys agree with this, or if you've tried this before, like honestly, I feel like a lot of people experience this, that once they build that initial trust, their employer kind of just, or they're okay with them kind of coasting a bit. Like they know that they trust them now, and it's like you've already established that. So if you guys have experienced this, let me know in the comments below. And remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, check out the Discord. There's a free and paid version. And also check out the Overemployed Masterclass. We teach you how to become and how to stay overemployed in there. So check that out, link in the description and the pinned comment below.